Hi everyone, I'm Paul, and for this final episode in my first batch of videos, I wanted to answer a question that really sits underneath everything I've shared so far. Was coming to South America in my 50s the right decision? Because when you do something like this later in life, people do wonder, and if I'm being honest, so do you at times. You have those moments where you think, was this a really good decision, or have I completely lost the plot? But now that I've had time to live it, not just think about it, I can honestly say, yes, it was the right decision for me. That does not mean it's all been easy. It definitely does not mean it's all gone to plan, but it was still the right decision. A huge part of the reason, if I'm being completely honest, was Vanessa. The plan was to be together properly, to build a life around that, and to stop trying to make a relationship work through distance, visits, and waiting. And that mattered a lot to me. So this was never just about travel. It was never just about trying something different, and it was never simply about coming to South America for the sake of it. It was about choosing a different kind of life, being with someone I love, and then working the rest out as I went along. Now that all sounds lovely, and in many ways it has been. But of course, there's always another side to it. The hardest part by far has been being away from my children. That has been the biggest emotional cost of all this. Because from the outside, a decision like this can sound exciting, a new country, a different lifestyle, a fresh chapter later in life. And it has been all those things. But when you make a big change, you do leave things behind. And for me, being away from my children has been the hardest part of that. You can know you've made the right decision and still miss people deeply. You can be grateful for where you are and still feel sad about what you're missing. Both of those things can be true at the same time. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned through all of this. Life is not always neat. Sometimes a good decision still comes with a loss. Another challenge has been confidence, because I think when people hear that someone came to South America in their 50s, they sometimes imagine that person must be really brave, really confident, really sure of themselves. But honestly, a lot of this has just been me figuring things out one step at a time. I certainly haven't felt fearless. I just kept going. And I think there's a difference. There have been plenty of moments where I felt unsure, out of my depth, or just tired, especially when you're in a different country, in a different culture, trying to build a life that looks very different to the one you had before. Even simple things can take more effort than you expect. The language has also been a major challenge for me. My Spanish is still very much a work in progress. And if I'm honest, that has been one of the hardest parts, because when you cannot properly express yourself or easily understand everything around you, it affects more than just your communication. It affects your confidence, it affects your independence, and it affects how comfortable you feel in everyday life. I've relied heavily on Vanessa because of that. Probably more than I would ideally like to, if I'm honest. And that's been humbling. It has reminded me what it feels like to be the beginner again. And that is not always comfortable, especially later in life, when you're used to knowing how things work and being able to manage for yourself. Then there's the practical side of it all. Money, work, stress, and uncertainty. All the glamorous things nobody really talks about. So one of the biggest risks I took was leaving the UK and stepping away from the safer, more predictable route. I could have stayed. I could have probably have found another job. That would have been the more secure option. It would have also have been the more expected option. But instead, I took the gamble of coming here and trying to build something of my own. And if I'm honest, that has not gone the way I originally imagined. The business side has been far more unpredictable than I wanted it to be. There's been stress, doubt, uncertainty, and a lot of trying to work things out as I go along. It definitely has not followed the neat plan I had in my head. But even with that, I still do not regret it, because sometimes the plan you had is not the life you end up with. And that does not automatically mean it's gone wrong. Sometimes it just means the road has changed and you have to change with it. That has been the big part of this whole experience for me. I came to South America thinking life might go one way, but it has gone another. But in many ways, it still gave me what I needed. Not exactly what I imagined, but what I needed. And I think that matters. It has also shown me that starting again later in life is possible. Not easy, not tidy, not guaranteed, but possible. I think a lot of people get into their 40s, 50s or 60s and start to quietly believe that big changes are for other people, that it's too late, that they've missed the moment, that they should probably just stick with what they know. And I understand that because I've had those thoughts too. But I also think there comes a point where staying where you are can become its own kind of risk. And sometimes the bigger risk is ignoring the life that keeps calling you. So, was coming to South America in my 50s the right decision? For me, yes. Definitely yes. Not because it's been perfect, not because everything has gone smoothly, not because I've suddenly become this fearless new person, but because it stretched me, it changed me, it gave me experiences I never would have had otherwise. It brought me closer to the life and the person that mattered most to me, and it proved to me that even later in life, you can still make a bold decision and build something different. You might not get it all right, you might have difficult days, you might miss people, you might feel uncertain, but that does not mean you should not do it. Sometimes the right decision still feels scary. Sometimes the right decision still comes with sacrifice. And sometimes the right decision only makes sense once you've lived it. If you're watching this and you've been thinking about making a big change in your own life, whatever that might look like, I think the biggest thing I'd say is this: do not assume it's too late. Do not assume you've missed your chance, and do not assume that just because something feels big, it means you're not capable of it. You may not have it all figured out. I certainly didn't, but that does not mean you cannot begin. Thank you so much for watching this first series of videos. I've really appreciated you coming along with me on this journey. And if you've enjoyed this one, do like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you've ever had a big life decision that felt scary at the time, but turned out to be right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.